Here we go. It's a special edition of the 50/50 podcast presented by Physical Athletics, our proud partners, Physical Athletics. They are doing some cutting edge stuff. The director of strength and conditioning, Coach Armando Aguilar, and his staff, they are doing some amazing things, applying science to your game. For those of you in the Borderland region here in El Paso, you can find them at 2270 Joe Battle Boulevard, as well as you can find them on all social media platforms at Physical Athletic. That's FYZICAL Athletic, as well as on their website at physicalathletics.com. So we're back. We're back with episode 2 of Inside Texas High School Soccer, the state playoffs edition. Another crazy week, super crazy week in the UIL Texas High School Soccer state playoffs. And I'm proud to be joined once again by my good friend, and he's the co-host of the group that we collaborate with quite a bit, San Antonio Soccer Roundtable, Coach Rafa C, Mr. at Papa Socceritis. Coach, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Coach?
I am doing great. So you're like fresh off the sideline here. You're watching games, filming games, interviewing coaches. Let's talk a little bit about the game you just came from.
Yeah, so I went to go see the 6A for Region 4 regional quarterfinal between Laredo Alexander and Del Rio, and this is the third matchup for the year for the teams since they're in the same district. And Del Rio I think they won both previous games, but somehow Alexander really, I don't know. I guess they ate their Wheaties tonight, Wheaties this morning, and they end up putting 4 on Del Rio, and good showing for the Alexander Bulldogs. Actually, one of my former club players, Jose, we call him Jose Shaggy Correa, scored the second goal against Del Rio, and like I said, they never let up, and they just really kind of took it to them. They were more of the aggressor. Del Rio just never adjusted, or I'm surprised the coaches didn't make any adjustments to kind of change the game and so forth to try to get back in it, because a 2-0 lead at the half is never safe. Right. So, but Alexander was able to get that third one on an own goal, and then they just controlled the game afterwards. So, but now Alexander has the pleasure and the honor to play probably our top team in the region, which is the Lee Volunteers, and that game's going to be. I was there at the coin toss, so pretty interesting to see the coin toss. It took about good 30 minutes. It's going to be Lee versus Alexander at Cabanas Field in Corpus Christi at 6 p.m. So if anybody down there, that's going to be a really good game down there.
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. That's good. So so you're saying, so you were actually there to witness the full coin flip and everything post match there with Coach Rogers there from Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was so that took 30 minutes, huh?
Yeah, it took a while. So I guess they wanted to, kind of make an agreement. I guess they want a neutral side and then maybe home and home and stuff. I think they finally resolved some things, and so they came out there were some interesting locations where they wanted some of the games, but it ended up being, I think part of the rule, I think something with UIL that he had mentioned, that they have to play a game like if it's neutral site, like an even distance. So I guess that's the reason why they're playing that game in Corpus Christi, because it's an even distance.
Yeah, that's I mean, they try to. It just obviously depends on who you're playing where, but yeah, that's I know that was in my days on the private school side. We kind of had the same thing, playing a San Antonio school playing it was vice versa. It was a San Antonio school playing a school from Corpus, going to Laredo for a neutral site location. So it was kind of the same thing, but in reverse. So that's great. I understand you also had a chance to do an interview there with Coach Rogers post Del Rio Alexander match, and I guess was that post coin toss or pre coin toss?
Post coin toss. I know KBB from San Antonio, the News 35. They interviewed him, so I kind of hopped along just to film him. Hopefully the video comes out. But so if you didn't see it, like on my part, it'll be on KBB 35 here in San Antonio. But they did ask him questions about how he thought about the matchup, and he did mention that they did face each other. They faced each other, I think, a couple years ago in the same round. He said it's going to be an interesting game, but I think they can pull this one off and go on to the next round. With the regional finals. So they're going to be the visitors, so they get to where I know it's going to be hot. I know that's what I've been hearing is going to be hot this coming week. So
Right.
I think those white jerseys are going to come in handy and help out. So I think the biggest concern, I guess, playing over there in Corpus is the wind. I think if
Right.
anybody team ever's ever played down there, the wind does make a big factor down there when you play. But I think they're ready to. I think they're ready to go. It's going to be, like I said, it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be a good game. But I think, like I said, for me, I think Lee's going to be the favorite to win, to advance and go into the regional final.
Right. That's great in-depth analysis there. So, SA Soccer Roundtable and the 50/50 podcast teaming up to bring some fresh, real fresh insider information. So, thanks, Coach. Thanks,
Thank you.
Coach Rafa. We appreciate that. All right, Coach. So initially, we're gonna dive right in. All right. So no special intros, no crazy songs, music, nothing. We're talking all things Texas high school soccer here today. We're gonna obviously where the focus is on the big tournament, the grand tournament, the state playoffs. But we episode one, obviously at that time, the only thing that had played out was the by district round, and that in itself was pretty wild. But now, what are your initial thoughts coming off of? We had the area round, which was earlier in the week, and then the regional quarterfinal round that was predominantly Friday, and a couple of matches today. What are your initial thoughts on a pretty crazy area and regional quarterfinal rounds?
I mean, to play 3 games and you know, and not even 10 days is it's going to be rough for some
Yeah,
teams. I think what if the teams that have really good depth, that's going to help you out in these next rounds because they're not going to be no cakewalks. You may have an occasional surprise as far as maybe a blowout here or there because it might not be their night, but you have to bring your A game now once you get to the regional quarterfinals and beyond because you're that close to getting to the state tournament. You know, so that's what I'm looking at. Some teams I'm looking forward to see which teams are going to raise up their level of play and really kind of stick out compared to maybe some other teams that are, your Cinderellas. There's some that are still out there. Are
right.
they going to pick up their game and so forth?
Yeah, yeah, and we'll get into, you mentioned, it's a great point. You mentioned Cinderella's. We'll get into that a little bit later, along with, I guess, for lack of better words, dark horses. So, because there's definitely still some out there. All right, Coach. So, we've talked about how it's going to play out over the course of the next week, coming off of this week. Or how it played out this last week and how it's going to lead into next week. And, again, we had talked about, we knew that if not by this weekend, that early next week in the regional semifinal round, that weather would be an issue, particularly heat, right? Heat. So
Mm-hmm.
some of these games will still be early. Some of them, I know you're trying to push them later in the evening if you can, but some games will be kind of late morning, early afternoon matchups. So that could be interesting. So let's talk about, when you look back on it, this crazy week that we had in the area and the regional quarterfinal round. Give me what you think. Let's look at the boys' side, maybe your top three results or shockers, and then on the girls' side, maybe your top three results or shockers.
I think the boys' side is one in your backyard, Eastlake. Eastlake knocking off South Lake Carroll and Byron Nelson. They made a statement winning those 2 games.
Mhm.
They're gonna say that, the Metroplex has dominated that region. I don't think it's gonna be this year because I think Eastlake has the momentum, and going into their Tuesday game to win that round game and then go on to the regional final. So that's probably one of the shockers there. A couple other soccer teams, like so some of the teams in the Metroplex, kind of like the Marcus is falling down, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's there, and then also a couple of Houston area teams too. So it's like I said, those for the boys' sides. Like there was one in I think in the Valley. Everybody thought I think Veterans Memorial was going to pass through, but Valley View came back. They actually were in the lead. They actually took the lead at the end with a minute left, so they passed through they're in this regional semifinals with a showdown with an undefeated Southwest, which I think Valley View is the last team that beat them, and that was a regional semifinal. I think it was like a 7-0.
yeah.
So that's gonna be. I wonder if that's in the minds of the Southwest players. You know, if trying to get some payback from that game. Um,
And that one was so because I think if I'm trying to remember it correctly, because Southwest is so San Antonio Southwest is on a what 40 is it 45? Is that right?
think
45
so.
game winning streak, something like that.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that last loss being to Valley View goes back what 2 years,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the East Lake one. I think anybody that is not from the borderland region, from El Paso, West Texas, really, they might be surprised by the El Paso East Lake results. I think, but anybody from here, I think, especially this year, you've seen that they've been building this momentum.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things I think the big things with them is that it's their first year in 6A, right? So it's getting a lot of people. That in itself is kind of getting a lot of people by surprise. But they've been a big school for a while, kind of. Um, so they've kind of had I guess if you want to call it, I don't know, a 6A mindset, 6A mentality, 6A numbers for well over a year. But and they were, as a 5A last year, they were in the same district that my school was in Isleta. So that should show you how the broad range of our districts out here.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the other thing too is if you're putting stock in a name like South Lake Carroll or Byron Nelson, that has obviously the pedigree, right? That is a
Hmm.
well established, a well known name, not just in soccer but in athletics across the state. That one, then it's going to probably maybe get you by surprise. But anybody out here, you ask them, I don't think anyone is really surprised by the victories. I think how they won is what got a lot of people's
Yeah.
attention, right? So I mean, to put up 10 goals, I'm sorry, 10 goals in 2 matches versus both South Lake Carroll and Byron Nelson, that's a statement in itself. But also, in that South Lake Carroll game, how that game played out, where South Lake Carroll, it was, I think, 0-0 for the first 20 minutes. South Lake Carroll took the lead, held the lead for the next 40 minutes or so. And then 60 minutes in, East Lake explodes for 3 goals in 3 minutes and then added a fourth, I think, about 10 minutes later. So that it's pretty amazing to see how how that transpired. And then they followed it up with a 6-2 victory over Byron Nelson. So yeah, I think it's anybody outside of here will tell you that it's not really I don't think it's really they're not shocked. I think people are more surprised by how they won
Yeah.
more than anything, especially in state playoffs, because realistically, as you know, we've discussed this, anytime really you get past beyond the by district round and area round and beyond, for sure, there are no bad teams. They're all quality teams. It's just a matter of, some of it is the district that they're coming out of. Some of it is the draw that they've been given in the tournament. And then sometimes some teams have bad days, right? Some teams have bad days. And I think what we're finding out too is that some teams that were undefeated almost all year,
Hmm.
or district titles, undefeated all year, they're that pressure, that playoff pressure, when teams come to play them, neutral site locations, and and they're being teams don't really care. This is where that whole saying of records go out the window. Um, they're being challenged, and some teams are they're caving. They're either caving under the pressure, or they're just realizing that
Yeah.
teams are coming to play, and they're not intimidated by their record or their district or whatever.
I know for the 5A boys, the shocker was Wichita Falls falling.
Yeah, yeah,
They were upset by Colleyville. Everybody was kind of handing them the trophy already, thinking that Wichita Falls would make a cakewalk into the finals, and Colleyville had other ideas and knocked them off. And I think that sets up a showdown. I think with I don't know if it's I think it's I'll just check. They have another surprise. Amarillo Paladuro. That's
right,
another team that's surprising. Team that they've got some surprising wins, and nobody thought they would do something. Amarillo's not a big soccer hotbed, but those boys they're on fire, and I think Colleyville better kind of look out for them. And then on the upper bracket, we have El Paso del Valle going up against a very good Grapevine team. That's going to
yeah,
be a really good matchup.
yeah, yeah. I think El Paso del Valle they might have had the latest game in the state last night. I think it ended. It ended about, I think, about 9:45 Mountain Time. I think somewhere in there, 9:50 Mountain Time, which I know
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the state that's almost 11 o'clock. So yeah, they had a great victory last night, 2-1 final, and I think Paladuro, you hit on that. I think they got a lot of people's attention when they bounced when they knocked off El Paso Bel Air in the area round. So that got a lot of people's attention, and they're playing well. They're playing well.
Yeah.
They're playing well, and then getting what was it? I think a game winner with about 39 seconds left versus a very a valiant effort by another El Paso team, El Paso Bowie, that was down, I think 2-0, came back, tied it up. Then it was 3-3. Paladoro took the lead again, 3-2, and then Bowie came back, tied it before not giving away the game, but unfortunately falling short with off of a free kick with 30 something seconds. So pretty brutal, pretty tough. All right, Coach. So what about the girls' side? You look across the classifications, kind of top. I know which one mine is. That really, I think, really should have gotten the majority of the state's attention, but I'll wait to see what you got. Your top 3 results or shockers on the girls' side across the classifications.
I think the one maybe we probably agree to this one is Prosper.
Yeah,
That's probably like the ESP right here.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
a shock there. I thought they were really going to win that region, run through it.
Right.
But like I said, Flower Mountain, props to those girls. They weren't intimidated. Hey, it's like I mentioned to a couple, to like especially like to Harry, like rankings don't mean anything in the playoffs.
Right.
The records even too is like who's gonna show up on the game, and like I said, they showed up, and now they got another. Like I said, they got another tough one with Eaton High School, so that should be a good game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a shocker there. I think for Region 4, the one shocker was and that was at that game was the Vandergrift Reagan game.
The area round. Yeah.
The area round, and I really thought Reagan, because it was basically a home game, and I thought this okay, they're gonna have an opportunity to win this. But Vandergrift's girls were just on fire, and
Yeah.
they just took it to them, and that's shocked. That surprised me, and then I kind of think it's like I'm wondering more and more now. Is there a gap now when it comes to girls soccer, high school soccer, between San Antonio and Austin? And that's even, like I said, even to some of the 5A levels too. That's trickled down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so that
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that a little bit more in a minute. We'll come back to that. So when we do our Region 4, Region 1 talk, but
Mhm.
yeah, that was, for me, I think the team the team that's really gotten my attention has been an eye opener. I don't. Nobody saw them getting. I don't think very many people saw them getting one win this weekend, let alone two. So Eaton. Eaton. They're out of the what is it? The Northwest ISD up there in Fort Worth. Uh, they beat a very a little bit more information that I had on their matchup versus El Paso Franklin and the area round. That El Paso Franklin, very good squad, but they were definitely, at this point, everybody's dealing with it. Some just more than others, but they were significantly impacted by injuries. And obviously they showed up to play the best that they could, but that's a very good Eaton squad, not taking anything away from them. Excuse me. But I think that, for them to push through that match pretty handedly, and then come right back and handle South Lake Carroll. They did, beat them pretty convincingly. And now who would have thought that we're looking at, here we are for in a Region 1 regional semifinal matchup, we have Eaton versus Flower Mound. When you had Prosper there and you had South Lake Carroll there, it's kind of hard to imagine that we would have these two, but this kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, it's why you play the game, right? Why you play the game.
Yeah.
That one for sure. I think Eaton has really gotten my attention quite a bit. If from the 6A girls, anyone else, Coach?
Another one is for 5A girls. They've kind of caught my attention a little bit, is the Amarillo High girls. No one's talking about them. And they're slowly sinking up. And like I said, they got an interesting semifinal game with Lakeview Centennial. That's an interesting matchup right there. They're in Region 1 and for 5A girls. So I think that's going to be a good one coming up. Then you have other than Region 2. The one team that really, I think, is sticking out, is got a couple quality wins, has been Highland Park. The Highland Park girls.
Yeah. For a school of kind of that pedigree and their notoriety, nobody's really talking about them. Nobody's really talking about them. I think a lot of that's going to be an interesting how that plays out. Region 1, Region 2 coming out of that area. When you look at, because right now you have Amarillo, Centennial, Frisco Centennial, Wiley, or not Frisco, Centennial, Wiley. That's Abilene, Wiley, Grapevine, Frisco, Wakeland, Forney, Frisco Memorial, and then Highland Park out of that section between Region 1 and Region 2. So, Amarillo, yeah.
Yeah, then I think there's some other ones in Region 3. Another team is Foster from the Sugarland area, or from Richmond, Texas. The Richmond Foster Lady Falcons. They've turned some heads and they've beaten some quality teams, and no one's been talking about them, especially in the Houston area. Most of the talks were probably for Friendswood, teams like that. But Foster could, like I said, they got a tough one with Magnolia, but I think they could, win that game and go on to, like I said, win the region. Like I said, nobody's expected them to really make a deep run for this year.
Yeah, and I think one of the ones that I kind of wanted to look at was kind of giving some love to 4A for sure. On my side too was out of this area, out of Region 1, San Elizario, the San Elizario girls, they've been, those first two rounds, they're by district and area round. I think they put up, I think it was about 25 goals. And then they took care of business 3-0 versus Pampa, setting up a very, very interesting matchup versus Argyle. So I think, it's kind of hard to say because down in the Region 2 area, you have Salino there. That's also been playing very solid. along with Melissa and Bullard and Henderson down there. But you look up in the Region One regional semifinals, you have Stephenville, the what is the still the defending state champion, taking
Mhm.
on Midlothian Heritage, and then of course Sanelli versus Argyle. I think to be able to go through that region, there's a reason why Region One tends to do so well, especially on the girls' side for 4A. What are your any particular thoughts on 4A?
Well, the one that caught my eye was Salina. Wow, 43 goals in 3 games, 43-0. And then this is a team that finished runner up. I don't know how they were not district champs. That's kind of that's a little interesting there that they weren't the district champs for I think District 12, I believe, and I'm trying to see who won that district, which was actually Maybank, who lost in the first round to Anna.
I was about to say
So
who's not even in the tournament anymore.
that's
Yeah,
no longer in the tournament. So I, I don't know. Salina must have turned it on, but they're gonna have a tough showdown with Bullard. I don't know. We're gonna see another 10+ games. I don't know if it's ever if any team in high school his in playoff histories has scored this amount of goals in 3 straight playoff games. I don't know if that's in the record books, but I'm sure Bullard's kind of like a little nervous about you know the firepower that Salina has. Uh,
right.
Sanelli with Argyle, that's another good game. I think that's props to the Sanelli girls. I think they can if they just play their game and do what they need to do. I think they can shock some people. Looking at Region 3, um, Bay City. No one's talking about Bay City. They're running it through. They won District
Yeah.
24, so they're slowly creeping up there. They got a showdown with another newcomer, a new school, Lake Belton. No one's talked about them either. So two new kind of newcomers, you know, kind of new powerhouses for soccer. Are going to match up this coming week, and then we have another showdown. Trying to get the other one. Salado, I know Salado girls have done really well. They've made some deep runs. I know a few years ago they did one in the Region 4. Since now they're moved over to the Region 3. I think they're playing hard in Jefferson. I think they should take care of business on that. And then, like I said, on the 4A side, we got some interesting matchups coming up. I think the surprise there is the Cal Allen girls.
Yeah.
Dropping
Yeah.
from 5A to 4A
Hmm.
might have helped the program a bit
Right.
to meet to compete against numbers but they got a really big game coming up with Burning, which I know we're sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's a great. You hit on Bay City as well, and Cal Allen kind of getting kind of some eye openers there. So for sure. So, all right, Coach. So next, moving along, a little bit of region. We'll probably go more Region 4. I know usually we have a little area, a little section here where we do Region 1, Region 4 talk. Um, I've already gotten in a good bit of Region 1 talk in terms of Sanelli, Del Valle, Sanelli, Del Valle, Sanelli girls, Del Valle boys, East Lake boys, El Paso East Lake boys here. So, and those are kind of 4A, 5A, 6A. But so let's do a little bit more Region 4 talk. Kind of what are your additional thoughts beyond what we've already hit on, kind of coming out of Region 4 across all the classifications?
Well, for the boys' side, like I said, for 6A, we got two matchups coming up. Lake Travis was one of the favorites, and then we have a little upstart team that's even some coaches. I heard some chatter at the game. They're still in disbelief, which is the Harlan Hawks.
Yeah.
You know, and they had a great win over there, going down to Laredo, to knock off United High School in their backyard. That says something there. And if I'm Lake Travis, I wouldn't take them lightly. And I know that game is going to be played Tuesday night at New Braunfels Canyon. It's going to be a good game. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Lake Travis. I think they better be ready to to play. I think even one of the players from Harlan, Oscar Valencia, was featured on ESPN for the top 10 for his little 40-yard Roberto Carlos style goal
Sign
that
them
he
up.
did on Harlingen South. Yeah, Real Madrid's looking. Hey, sign him up because we need a
Yeah.
free kicker.
Yeah, that to me, I think right now that's got to be, forget about the goal of the tournament. That's got to be the goal of the year in high school that I've seen so far. Because that was, and if you haven't had a chance to see it, I know that was posted by, I believe their handle is at Harlan Hawks, I think it is.
I think so.
Uh, their boys soccer on Twitter. Oscar Valencia has a, just like Coach mentioned, a 40-yard screamer that's upper 90. I mean, it's a frozen rope. Uh, kind of, I think I mentioned on there, it reminded me of a young Hector Cano, but yeah, I think, yeah, I think that it was an unbelievable goal for sure. For me, you talk about Region 4, obviously a lot of the eyes, particularly on the talking about the boys side with in 6A, that is, but on on the girls side, I think for me, kind of a bit of an eye opener. It was the Lake Travis, big supporters of the 50/50 podcast, the Lake Travis women's soccer program going down to Round Rock, and kind of had a very, from people that I've spoken to, had a very, very, very intense, kind of a slugfest, had a regional final feel to it,
Mhm.
which we are going to see, which you usually do end up kind of seeing in some regional quarterfinal matchups. Perfect example was the Lee Clemens game, 6A boys soccer match that you were that I know you got to see. A lot of people were at. Obviously, I got to see on their live stream on YouTube as well. But yeah, I think you still have. It's an interesting matchup there because now and then you have, so Round Rock now advances to play Los Fresnos, and then you have on the other half of that bracket there you have Vandergrift facing Brennan. Brennan's just kind of slowly plugging along, and now they get Vandergrift, kind of their first real true challenge of the tournament on the girls' side. What's your thoughts on that?
Brennan's got to play a perfect game against Vandergrift. I think one thing I learned from the Vandergrift game against Reagan, Vandergrift plays very physical. They have great speed. They have great touch to the ball. They have one girl that little short one, little short forward, but man, she packs a mean shot, and she got two of them by the Reagan goalie. And I don't think I think they kind of estimated her on the field. She was getting by them, giving them running circles around them the whole night. But like I said, Brennan, I think if they can play a lot better game, I think I was kind of disappointed with the way Reagan played. I think they kind of were intimidated by the physical play. It's one thing I always like to tell my players that you got to learn how to chicken fight. And when
Yeah,
the Roosters fight, you got to stand up and take the hits. If
yeah,
I think Brennan can withstand some hits, play discipline in the back, and they kind of I think one thing with the key is if they can get good counterattacks on Vandergrift, you can win the game. So I know Vandergrift's probably out of the four teams are probably gonna maybe the favorite going in. Even though I know Round Rock won the district, but
right.
Vandergrift's been playing. They've really raised their bar. But like I said, Bretta needs to. Like I said, I think they can compete with them. But I think in the end, I think Vandergrift should take care of business. As far as the other game, I just don't see Los Fresnos putting much a fight against Round Rock. Uh, I saw one of those Fresnos games on a live stream, and compared to the pedigree at Round Rock, this could become a rout. Not a disrespect on that. It's just watching the kind of like the level of play, and then also District 25 is a lot tougher district than District 32 for girls soccer, and
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, and then to knock off Lake Travis, that's a that's basically close to like a state championship level type of game,
Right.
you know. So I'm gonna give the edge to Round Rock, but going into hopefully, I guess if they go into a final, I know they're runner ups to Round Rock. I'm gonna give the edge a little bit to Vanderbilt because I think they're they're peaking at the right time. And I think they can knock off Round Rock in the regional final.
Nice. Yeah, 4A talk, shifting to 5A. I think for me, when I look at the brackets, and obviously there's a lot of good matchups. You have, but I think the ones that really get my attention are the ones in Region 4, both on the girls' side and the boys' side. Because
Hmm.
we look at the girls, you look at Cedar Park. That's a team that's that's proven themselves, battle tested already. They're coming off of a very a very good match, a very good showing versus a very young but still very talented Bernie Champion squad. And and that's a Bernie Champion squad that's also battle tested, coming out of the district that they play in. So that says something. And they get McAllen. I know you've been touting McAllen quite a bit. The McAllen girls, uh, they haven't really played a whole lot out of the Valley this year, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's another undefeated squad. So you got Cedar Park and McAllen next round, and then the other half of that semifinal, you have Dripping Springs, which I know everybody has eyes on, versus another good squad in Gregory Portland. So that's a dynamite semifinal there. What are your thoughts on that?
Cedar Park. If I'm Cedar Park, don't fall asleep with McAllen. I think a few years ago when the McAllen girls made the state tournament in 6A, we had two. I think one Austin area, one San Antonio area team fall asleep on them, and they made them pay.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great game. I'm not sure of the details where they're playing that game, but uh, I'm going to give the edge to McAllen. Even though Cedar Park's won some big games, but I think McAllen they're doing. They took care of business with Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. And took care of Victoria. And like I said, I think they're doing a great job down there with that program. That program's really turned around. It's now starting to become, you know, getting close to becoming a state caliber team year in and year out. The other interesting matchup is going to be Dripping Springs and Gregory Portland. I think
Right.
Gregory Portland hasn't lost a game yet,
I
but
don't
I
think
think
so.
that but this is going to be their first test, and this is an interesting game, but I'm gonna give the edge to Dripping Springs. I think Dripping Springs will get by this, and then I guess for the final, could see a maybe McAllen Dripping Springs final. That's gonna be a classic. I still think Dripping Springs is probably as far of the four teams that I think they're the ones that are probably gonna end up
Mhm.
going into the state final four.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on the boys side, we look at Region 4 there, and it's interesting because you have, for I know on Twitter, I know San Antonio Soccer Roundtable was putting out these different polls, right, as far as who comes out, who wins the regional semifinals. This was one of that Region 4 boy 5A boys was the one that I could not answer. I really could not. You have San Antonio Southwest taking on Valley View, and then Dripping Springs taking on Brownsville Porter. And I was kind of scratching my head, like I could see a couple of different scenarios in here, and then you also you also have probably the hottest team in the entire state, regardless of classification, in San Antonio Southwest in this group. So I mean, I don't know. I was scratching my head. I really couldn't come up with an answer in this group. What are your thoughts?
This I think any of the four teams could win this region. That's the I know the poll the polls. I know there's somewhere been voting for Southwest, but you
This
got to
this is the
remember
the group of death, right?
this is all four teams is a group of death, and Southwest has, like I said, they'll be reminded what happened a couple years ago with Valley View, that 7-0 drubbing. Is that in the back of their mind? Can they overcome that? Because, like I said, Valley View beat a quality Brownsville Veterans Memorial team, who was another one of the could have been a favorite too. Um, if Southwest can beat Valley View, then that looks good. That's a good confidence booster.
Yeah.
On the bottom side, we have Dripping Springs and Brownsville Porter. I know Dripping Springs got they survived a game against Leander. They were down 2-0, but they roared back and won that game. But they're not going to be able to do that against Brownsville Porter if they're down 2-0. Brownsville Porter has the history. They got the state titles in the past. They put 7 goals on Sherryland. So that should tell you that's another quality team,
Yeah.
out of the valley. So this game. I smell upset. I think Porter's gonna knock off Dripping Springs on this game. So, and then I think still to me, I think Valley View still has the edge. So we could end up seeing an All Valley 5A Boys Region 4 championship.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like I said, Southwest could, like I said, if they can get that little reminder from a few years ago, like I said, all the games are going to be, like I said, are all competitive. So, but
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think it's going to end up being an All Valley Final Four.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And, we, so we've talked about it a little bit and we kind of hinted on it a little bit. And one last thing, kind of before we start to look ahead at the regional semis and the regional final round, I kind of wanted to come back to a little bit on what you were discussing on your take, kind of particularly on the girls' side, I think, if I heard you correctly, but maybe on the boys' side as well. But this maybe what you think is a bit of what you think has been a separation, kind of in talking San Antonio and Austin. Kind of, can you expand on that a little bit as far as the programs between those two cities that are obviously very close to each other?
Yeah, what I've seen, I guess, minus the 4A girls, because I think the 4A girls has been dominated by the San Antonio area teams. Like I said, like the Bernie girls, and I think I think we have another team coming up. Oh, hold on, I'm trying to look at my brackets real quick. And the Wimberley area, like I said.
Yeah, Wimberley. Yeah, Wimberley. Yeah.
Wimberley. But when you look at 6A and 5A girls, it's being dominated by the Austin area high school teams. And that's a question I brought up. I know with Harry and Royce last week about has the gap of the level of play widened. Has Austin already overtaken? It seems like Austin's have overtaken San Antonio.
Right.
So to me, it said, is that gonna how's that gonna change in the future? We'll see. It could also be maybe because there's more schools in San Antonio than in Austin. Does that saturate a lot of the talent and so forth? That's those are big also big reasons why. So maybe some teams are not as strong as others because of the school population wise. But
right.
I do see, like I said, I do see like a gap right now between Austin and San Antonio girls soccer.
Right. Yeah, and make no mistake about it. I don't think, in what at least my interpretation, but my belief also is it's not that there is this lack of talent in that greater San Antonio area, because that's not the case at all. But yeah, I think it's more of a question of what's kind of happening here, right? What's going on in terms of how come recently, and in many ways, I know I've mentioned this before, is that El Paso kind of mirrors San Antonio in terms of the success that El Paso has had at the state level has been on the boys' side, right? 4A and 5A. I think this is kind of an Eastlake. If Eastlake can continue to go along, they might finally be that 6A that breaks through on the boys' side. But just like San Antonio, El Paso's struggles have really been on the girls' side, a team that can break through beyond, the area or regional quarterfinal round. And you have Sanelli here at the 4A level that's proven that, right? They're kind of great. And that's a squad that's been gradually getting better, right? Gradually getting better over the last couple of years. So yeah, I think if there's going to be an initial breakthrough, I could see it there happening at the 4A level, with hopefully maybe with Sanelli. But yeah, very similar. Very similar. Where and of course, Region 1 is a little different because all roads lead to the Metroplex, to DFW, right? But yeah, I can definitely see what you're talking about there when you're kind of the question comes up of Austin and San Antonio, right? Like what's going on there?
I think also has to do is maybe I know some of the players, do play in the high caliber, the ECNL level or the state, state or the state SCL level, the state classic level. There might be a big, more more competitive teams. I guess that we're looking at Austin, San Antonio. There might be more in the Austin area compared to what we have here, like here in San Antonio. So that could be like a big influence on there as far as where those players are playing at. You may have some group of players that are playing together from the same high school playing with the same club, because usually sometimes that happens because of the area where they live at. Where they'll be, with the whoever's the closest club team there, for that area. Unless some, you do have some that do travel out, and I know like what I heard one about like the Uvalde girls. They had a couple other players come all the way to San Antonio to play club for surf. So you do have some players like that who are so that I think that's also a big influence as far as with the gap. And I think with Region 1 with the El Paso Dallas, I think I know the boys side. I think they're at that level or about to overpass the Dallas boys because it's all become a little oversaturated over there. But I think the girls side, I think they're coming along. Like I said, you still have great programs like this besides St. LA. I mean, Franklin's an up and coming team. I think they're gonna break through in the future, and maybe get into a state tournament. And like I said, we have other ones too out there in your area.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure, for sure. So, all right, Coach. So moving along. So now we're going to look ahead, and we've discussed it a little bit already. So, kind of looking ahead at the regional semis and what might be the regional finals. What if you can kind of look at what's a big, in each, maybe in each classification, or just maybe one or two on the boys side, one or two on the girls side. What's a big regional semifinal matchup that you have your eye on? Like maybe your top two, and then on the boys or girls side, and then what you think is going to project to a really good regional final.
I think the one that intrigues me is actually in Region 1, and that's going back with the East Lake boys. They got Dallas Jesuit, and I think Dallas Jesuits they've won a state title since crossing over from TAPS into UIL.
Right.
And that's gonna be they're gonna play a team that's won a state title. Can they continue on of what they've done the last few games? I think if they get by this game, if they win this game, I think you're start getting your tickets ready to hopefully go to Georgetown. Because
Nice.
they so they're like I said, that's one game to look at. I think also another game to look at is that Southwest Valley View game. Can Southwest get the monkey off the back and knock off Valley View after what happened to a few years ago?
And that's 5A boys that you're talking about,
Other
right?
boys, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 5A boys. So that's an interesting matchup. And then for the girls side, I know there's some really good matchups in the Metroplex area. Now that Prosper's out, was who was going to be the favorite? Can Eaton, like I said, can Eaton continue on and knock off that Flower Mound team? I'm sure
Right.
Flower Mounds they're flying high, knocking off Prosper, but Eaton took care of business with Salt Lake Carroll, and I think if Eaton can get another quality win, like I said, they could They can end up representing like I said, the 6A girls there for Region 1. We have other ones. I'm checking to see. The one that really intrigues me is that the 4A girls Bernie versus Cal Allen.
Hmm.
That's an intriguing game. Bernie's got the history. They've won, like I said, they've been to state tournaments in the past. This is uncharted waters for the Cal Allen girls,
Yeah.
and can they knock off Cal Allen? I mean, knock off Bernie. We shall see. And but it's going to be a very good game. It's going to be a tight game. I do give an edge, like I said, to Bernie, but that's another game that's caught my eye, especially down in the 4A level.
Yeah, I think for me, if there's kind of one, because I know I've already hit on some of the ones that I'm kind of looking at, but I think if you look at 4A boys, the one that I'm kind of really looking forward to, that if both teams kind of projected take care of business, um, you have in Region 4 4A boys, uh, Taylor versus Hidalgo and Bernie versus London. I think collectively we're projecting. I know you were very big on Hidalgo and
Mm-hmm.
and Bernie as well. I think Bernie's kind of been I guess the class of Region 4 for sure. You could argue the state at 4A boys, but I think that is going to be a dynamite matchup. Even if Taylor can get there, obviously, but I think in terms of styles of play, if you end up with Hidalgo and Bernie there for a regional final for a boys, that's going to be. I think that sets up for a classic, an absolute regional final classic. That that I'm looking for, I'd be looking forward to. And then, the same thing you can kind of make the argument in terms of projections for on the 4A girls side in Region 4, where if Wimberley came off a very tough match against a Fredericksburg team that's been, just getting better year after year. Close friend of mine, good friend of mine, Coach Logan Minshew out at Fredericksburg. I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday. He's done tremendous things with that program. We used to play in their tournament. They have a great tournament out there, the Fredericksburg Hill Country Winter Classic, that's been going on now for about, I want to say, 5 or 6 years. And where that program was in terms of, I know when he started to where they are now, so I think that's a squad to look. Even though they came up short yesterday versus Wimberley, that's a squad to look out for in the future. That's a program that's going to continue to get better. And but needless to say, Wimberley advanced. They're taking on London, Corpus Christi, London, and then you have Bernie, and you mentioned it, Cal Allen, right? But I think kind of all roads will lead to ultimately Wimberley versus Bernie. And those are two teams that are very familiar with each other, very familiar with each other. So also sets up for probably what should be a regional final classic. So yeah, I mean, 4A, a lot of people kind of like to, thumb their nose, whatever you want to call it, look the other way when it comes to the lower classification. But I think it's some great stuff, especially at this point. So yeah, I think those are some great matchups as well, Coach. All right, so now your biggest. We look at maybe your top in 4A, 5A, 6A on the boys' side, on the girls' side. Your dark horses or Cinderellas, your biggest surprises, who's either you can identify one or the other as far as, hey, keep your eye. Maybe they're not quite a Cinderella, but this team is going to still go on and maybe do some more damage. Or of course your Cinderella, who do you have as your picks for either or your dark horse or your Cinderella that could still be successful this next coming week in the semifinals and the regional final?
One of the dark horses, I think, for 4A boys comes from Region 1, the Diamond Hill Jarvis team. And that team they've knocked off some quality teams. They got a big matchup with Stephenville. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be a very interesting game. Normally you don't think Fort Worth ISD being a powerhouse in boys soccer, but they've pulled through. So they're more one of our dark horses that come out of there. Um, Another dark horse, could be, like I said, Mineral Wells. No one's talking about them. Um, Region Two, you got to look at Palestine.
Yeah.
I think Palestine has been, they've made it to a state. I know they got one title, but they lost two heartbreakers, one to San Eli and one to Progresso. I think they've learned from those, from those games that sometimes you do need to play tougher competition to get you
Right.
ready for the big game. So I think they got something to prove. I know they got another tough matchup coming up, but I think I said kind of look out for them. I think no one's really talking too much about them out of Region Two, and I think they should take care of business there and get to the to the state Final Four.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very quality. That's a quality program. Palestine or Palestine, I guess, I think, as they say it,
Mm-hmm.
as they pronounce it. And then yeah, and you mentioned Stephenville, who Diamond Hill Jarvis has next, but that's also going to be a Stephenville squad that's they're coming off of a game where they're not lucky, but I know they're kind of thanking they're thanking the soccer gods that they got through that that Sanelli game. That was a game where they were up 2-0, lost the lead, then took the lead 3-2, and then lost the lead with like 15 seconds left, and then went into extra time, double overtime, and went to the final penalty kick before they were able to pull it out. So how much energy, how much emotion did they expend off of a game like that? And you kind of have a Diamond Hill Jarvis squad that's just moving along, just plugging away. So yeah, that'll make for a very good matchup. Yeah, I think so. Who else? I know you hit 4A, but what else you got in terms of any other dark horses or Cinderellas that you kind of want to hit on that you could see having success this next week?
I think for maybe for 5A boys is the Foster boys. The Foster boys they've gone through some pretty tough games. They knocked off a really good Sharpstown team in PKs. Now they play with one of the probably a state recognized team, which is the Kingwood Mustangs. That's going to be a great game. And if Foster can win that game, I think they have a legitimate shot getting into winning the region and going into you know. But then yeah, looking at the bottom, you have Hendrickson, Pflugerville Hendrickson. No one's talking about them. They've kind of done the same thing like Foster. They got a big game with another Houston area powerhouse, was his Friendswood and Kingwood. Those are two quality programs that have won state titles, have been to the state tournament, and then you got two unknowns are ready ready to take the, I guess, quote unquote, the throne for region 3. And I could see a Hendrickson versus Foster final.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a possibility. It's kind of similar to what region 4. You have 4 quality teams that anyone can end up winning the region. So you gotta, I guess, you gotta have to look out for Hendrickson. You gotta look out for Foster for 5A boys from region
yeah.
over there in region
Hendrickson.
3.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Hendrickson is like, I don't know if they're the I don't know what to call them. Do you call them a dark horse, or do you call them a Cinderella, or are they, I don't know, are they a dark Cinderella maybe, because they're just, I mean, that's a squad that's, I view them as they're kind of playing with house money at this point. They're was reading, there was a great article out there by Varsity News earlier today on them that they're in it right now. This is their most successful season in program history. So they're kind of already riding that wave of just like, wow, we've never been here before, and this is they're kind of breaking new ground and turning heads. So yeah, that's making for a very good story, very cool story there. So all right, anyone else, whether you look at 5A boy or 5A girls, sorry, or on the 6A side, Coach?
Well, 5A girls, Just kind of looking around which some like the matchups. Well, we also have the Foster girls too. They've kind of done what the boys have done. They've matched tick for tack for them. They've beaten
Yeah.
some quality teams in the second and third round. Like I said, don't sleep on them. I think I'm saying they're a Cinderella, but they're a dark horse. Um, you have A&M Consolidated. No one's talked about the girls from A&M Consolidated. And they have had some good programs in the past, but this year I don't think anyone expected, especially finishing in third in their district in that district where they are. It's a
Right.
real tough one. They got a tall task. They got the Friendwoods girls, and the Friendwoods girls. They get, like I said, they've also been a state powerhouse in 5A soccer for the last 10 years. If they could knock them off, what a notch on your record to knock off a state quality team. So that's going to be
Right.
an interesting game. And then I guess the dark horse also for I guess 5A girls is McAllen. I don't something about McAllen. They what they did a couple years ago. They've maintained that level even though they dropped down to 5A, which I think that maybe that was I think that was also a benefit to really kind of stay at that level. Like I said, I think they're gonna knock off Cedar Park, and then I think could they knock off Dripping Springs? I think they have. I think they have the players to do so. So that's like I said, they're kind of my Cinderella team, dark horse ish from
Yeah.
for 5A girls.
Yeah. Yeah. They're you kind of get the feeling. Well, I get the feeling at least that if McAllen can figure it out versus Cedar Park, that they could be in line for big things. So yeah, but that's also, like I said, that's also a Cedar Park squad they've played well. They've played very well, and they've beaten Alamo Heights. They've beaten now Bernie Champion,
Hmm.
good friend of mine. Shout out to Coach Carol Walters out there at Bernie Champion. She's a 50/50 podcast alum, and and I know the quality of that program in Bernie Champion, and for Cedar Park to you know to be able to come out victorious in that one, that's kind of saying something as well. So they're playing very well. That Cedar Park squad is playing very well. A lot of confidence right now. So good, awesome. Anyone else on the 6A side, Coach?
6A. I can say, I guess for Region 3, I'm just kind of strolling through there. One team that kind of catches my eye for region for girls 6A is is Beaumont Westbrook. Beaumont's not really a hubbub for soccer or really
Right.
known for soccer. I know maybe for a little bit for football, but if you look what the Westbrook team has done, they've beaten two district champs. They've beaten Pearland and they've beaten Clear Lake. You know, you don't know by the skin of their teeth, but they've got the job done, and now they got another test with Cypher, and like I said, Cypher, that's
Right.
another Cinderella. They knocked off Katie Seven Lakes, who was probably the favorite to win the 6A Region 3 girls.
Right.
So that's a good like I said, we had two Cinderella teams in a regional semifinal matchup. I think the winner of those games will play. I think Houston Memorial and Clear Creek.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so I know, like I said, Memorial's probably be the favorite, but like I said, don't count out either Cypher or Beaumont Westbrook. They could see, like I said, probably see them in the final and maybe advance on. So those are my surprises for that region for girls.
Awesome. Good deal. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't. You can make an argument for any number of teams. So yeah, that's well said. All right, and then one matchup, Coach. As we kind of we transition here, we start to wrap up this again, our episode 2 of Inside Texas High School Soccer. As we look forward to this week, Tuesday, maybe there's some on Monday. I haven't seen anything actually announced for Monday as far as regional semifinal. Have you?
Not that I've seen. Trying to see which games will be.
I hadn't seen anything, but I know why
I'm
you're
sure
looking
they're
at it.
gonna post. Yeah, most of them I think they're gonna be posted probably by tomorrow.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think there was like a few games left, so they were
Yeah.
probably waiting. So I think most of them are probably. I have a feeling most of these games are probably going to be on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so we're talking about that quick turnaround there between Tuesday and then Friday. And sometimes, and we talked about it earlier, you and I offline,
Mhm.
that sometimes what you end up getting is you get this interesting dynamic in certain regions where the regional quarterfinal ends up kind of being a better matchup, kind of more of a slugfest than the regional semifinal does, and then of course the regional final is the regional final. It's a very tough competitive matchup. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic how that happens sometimes, and usually sometimes you'll see. A Cinderella gets in there. They get a couple of surprise wins, and then they kind of run out of steam, right? They run out of gas or what have you. So, so we talk about now your top three matchups, Coach. We're not going to really look to the regional final at this point, because
Mhm.
that can take you down a number of you can kind of go down the rabbit hole that way. But for Tuesday, we're going to look at first and foremost, we're going to look at Tuesday. What is um, your top three matchups that you kind of want to highlight on the boys side, all classifications, and then on the girls side, all classifications? What would you say are your top three?
I think my top three would be.
Like the three that you'd pay $100 to watch each of these games on the girls side and on the boys side.
Well, for the boys side, I'm interested in the Frisco boys versus Longview, Dallas versus Little East Texas. That's a real interesting. Like I'd pay money to see that game. I know Frisco. Frisco's been a powerhouse in the past for soccer. I know lately it's been Wakeland, but Frisco's made a run, and so has Longview. And I think that'd be a very interesting game for on the boys' side as one of my top games to watch.
And
Another
that's
one,
5A for our listeners. That's 5A boys region
Region
2, I
two.
believe, right? Region 2. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then another one for me for 5A actually would be the trying to go kind of look at just looking at my brackets really quick. So the time, but another one I probably here in my backyard, Southwest versus Valley View. I
Hmm.
pay money. I'm gonna pay money to see that one. I want to see if Southwest can respond to this game.
Yeah.
Take that next step? You're great, but can you be elite? Like I said, and I see Valley View and I see Porter as an elite program because they've made it. If they've won a state title or they've made it to a state final.
Hmm. And that
They've
one
been
is
good.
that Southwest Valley View match is slated for Tuesday evening. Where again? Is that at
Uh,
Paris?
the, they haven't said the details of it yet. Well, not that I know of, unless I haven't seen anything posted yet.
Okay. I thought, okay. I thought you had some seen details on that one.
Hopefully, I can if I can find that, I'll make sure I'll post that on our website there on
All
the
right.
roundtable on Twitter. But I'd
Got
pay to see that game. Like I said, Southwest, they've won all those games. You're great, but can you be elite? And
Yeah.
this is a game that could change your program and be considered one of the elite ones in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What else you got, Coach?
I think for girls, the interesting matchup would be looking around, see would be It's that Stephenville Midlothian game
Mm.
in Region 1 4A.
Hmm.
I think Midlothian Heritage. That's a state caliber level game right there. And Midlothian Heritage, I think they've made deep runs. Stephenville, like I said, they got the state title. Can they get to another state title? So this, like I said, this is probably one of the games I pay to see. Who's gonna break through, and I think maybe out of this could be the one that's gonna end up winning the state championship.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I think, for me, when I look at it, a couple of ones, it's almost a toss up, I think, for very different reasons. On the 6A, I look at 6A boys, and one of the games that you spoke to earlier, that El Paso Eastlake Dallas Jesuit matchup, very intriguing, very intriguing. A lot of storylines, not a lot of history there between obviously the both of them, but there's definitely some history, particularly the Dallas Jesuit having the pedigree, and then the other one, I think you hit on it a little bit earlier, but that 6A boys again, Lake Travis and Harlan. What is Harlan? Does Harlan challenge Lake Travis? That's also been a very, very stingy Lake Travis defense. Very organized. Does Harlan? Does Harlan show up and take it? Surprise Lake Travis, or is it kind of predestined, predetermined, preordained kind of San Antonio Lee and Lake Travis in that regional final. So, that's for me, that's kind of between kind of Region 1 and Region 4 and 6A. That's what really kind of gets my attention. And then when you look at 5A, I think for me, it's a toss up. I think you could argue, both in 5A girls and 5A boys, it's these quote unquote, I guess, groups of death, right? In Region 4 for both of them.
Yeah.
You have a surging Cedar Park squad, 5A girls, taking on a McAllen squad that is undefeated, and looks to be very, very strong and underrated. You have Dripping Springs that is kind of touted to seriously make a run at state, taking on another undefeated squad in Gregory Portland. So I guess the two squads that are supposed to be in that group, that are supposed to be kind of the minnows, if you will, they're both undefeated. They're both very strong. So, and then of course we hit on the 5A boys, Southwest versus Valley View and Dripping Springs versus Brownsville Porter. I mean, that Region 4 boys, I couldn't pick, I couldn't pick a winner to come out of that group if my life depended on it right now. Not with confidence, at least, because I could see that, just like you said, I could see that going a number of ways. So very, very interesting, very excited about those matchups. So, all right, Coach. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up here. It's been great having you on again today. So, for our listeners, thank you. Our viewers today, thank you for joining us. We didn't get any questions. I was hoping we'd get some. DMs were open earlier, but we didn't get anything. So again, for our listeners, this was Inside Texas High School Soccer, Episode 2, State Playoffs. Proud to be joined here by Coach Rafa at Papa Socceritis from the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. Coach, any final words, any final last plugs, anything? What do you guys got going on this week?
We have a show Monday night. We're going to do a roundup of the area and regional quarterfinal round, looking into these regional semifinal matchups. And then I think Wednesday we're going to do our regional final show. See who's going to go to the big dance. Even though it's not going to be in one location, they're still going to have to travel, which is another factor. So that's going to be interesting, doing a Tuesday night regional state semifinal. That's I've never heard of before, but that's going to happen this year. So we're going to go into that, and then we're also going to do a little talk about SAFC. Not a good week for them against FC Dallas. did sign a couple new player. I think they signed a new player from Brazil, so we can probably talk into that, and then other news going in as far as with the USO game. With all the schedule came out finally, so we finally have a schedule out, so we know who our opponents are for the week and so forth.
Right. Awesome. Great stuff. Definitely looking forward to listening to that. And again, so for our listeners, you can find them. You can find their podcast and their live stream on Twitter, I believe, and Facebook
Mm-hmm.
at SATX Soccer. Again, that's at SATX Soccer for the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. They do a great job along with my buddies out there, and Harry, who's you can find him at RAMINCOL, that's short for Ram in Colorado, and then also Royce the Voice, who I don't know if his handle is literally just at Royce the Voice, but I got to look his up again. And then I know on occasion you have at Toes Wiggle there, Danielle. So make sure you check them out. They're doing great things. We will be back next week with episode 3 of Inside Texas High School Soccer, our state playoffs edition. Or this will be episode 3 of our 4-part series, where we'll look at obviously all the results of the regional semifinal and regional final round, and we look forward to the state semifinal and the actual state final, the championship match. It should make, just like you said, I think it's going to be uncharted. It's going to be uncharted territory for everybody, right? Because nobody is used to multiple trips in a week like this with its traditionally what is a regional tournament, right? So yeah, it'll make for an very interesting way of see how things play out, who does well, who are the road warriors, as you put it, right? And who handles it better, who handles it better. So for sure, I think we're far from done in terms of surprises, upsets, maybe a couple of more number 1 seeds falling, because that's just how this year has been. That's just how, coming out of 2020 with COVID, and obviously we're not through the pandemic yet, but that has kind of proven, we're hoping that all teams can continue to test negative. Nobody succumbs to any issues with COVID-19 as well. So, and then the last thing I kind of just wanted to hit on was the fact that let's not forget that we need to be grateful that we're here, that we've made it to this point, and that we see out the tournament all the way through to the finals and crown 6 champions across all our classifications. So, Coach, thank you again. Any other final thoughts, final words?
Just looking forward for these great matchups that's coming Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and we'll see who gets to the Elite Eight, who's a legitimate one that's going to go into the state the state Final Four. So who's a contender, who's not.
Right. Absolutely. And then again, Coach, we can't thank you enough for your analysis and breaking things down with me. And of course, we make it a point to look at all the regions, of course, including Region 2 and Region 3. We bring an additional expertise to Region 1 and Region 4, obviously. But thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to all our supporters. If you didn't get a chance to obviously hear this live, then this will also be coming out later in the week as a podcast episode. So thank you again to all of our listeners, all of our supporters. We appreciate everybody. We couldn't do it without you guys. Best of luck to all the remaining teams, and congratulations to all of our teams, all of our schools that bowed out over the last couple of rounds that were eliminated. Congratulations on what was obviously a very, very tough season, a season like no other for everybody. So thank you again, everybody. So until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.